And the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place due to the outbreak of the coronavirus. This meeting of the Town of Berlin Board of Selectmen will be conducted by a remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. The Town of Berlin will use best efforts to post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, the town's YouTube channel, and approved minutes will be posted on mytowngovernment.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to attend the virtual meeting may attend via the Zoom webinar platform in one of two ways, with both audio and video access, or by telephone audio only. Should any board member have technical difficulties and/or lose access to the meeting will recess for a period of time to see whether access can be restored. If not, the meeting will be continued to another date agreed to by a majority of the board or adjourned until our next scheduled meeting. All right. And I'd like to call to order the meeting at 7:05. And it was asked that we have a moment of silence in memory of our former Council on Aging Chairman, George Pendergast, who passed away recently. So let's all have a thought for George. Thank you. And I hope that his family knows that family and friends are with them all. I think I already read the announcements. We have approval of the minutes of July 20th open session. If you've both read, does one of you have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to accept the open meeting sessions from our meeting on July 20th, 2020.
I second.
Okay, is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right, unanimous. And under correspondence, I was going to read the letter from the Berlin-Boylston Regional Transition School Committee, the chairman, James Spencer. It was on July 31st, 2020. First, let me thank everyone from both of our communities for your patience and understanding during this unconventional time in our lives. I know many of our residents are growing uncomfortable as we get closer to the release of our 2021 school re-entry plan. On Tuesday night, August 4th, Jeff Zange, Superintendent of Schools, will present the 3 re-entry plans as outlined by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Mr. Zange will as well make his recommendation for the plan best suited for our communities and students. The goal of this presentation is inform and empower our school committee to understand, question, and vote on these plans. Because of this importance, I will not be accepting questions or public comments during the presentation. As a school committee, we absolutely believe feedback from our communities is of the utmost importance. Our ask of you is please review, listen, and discuss the reentry plans. Please document your questions and send them to Christy Turgeon, Executive Superintendent, Turgeon @bbrsd.org. The BDRSD leadership team and the school committee will be scheduling a subsequent virtual town hall where we will one by one answer all of your questions and allow for follow-up discussion. The date and time of this town hall remains to be determined, but will occur before August 10th, when our plans are due. As you can imagine, our district administration, teachers, committee members, and parent volunteers are working daily to revise and improve these plans. We continue to ask for your patience and support as we come together to accomplish what is in the best interest of our students and teachers. Sincerely, James Spencer, Berlin-Boylston Regional Transition School Committee Chair. And we will be speaking to James shortly in an appointment. Margaret?
Through the chair, for any residents who are interested in attending the meeting and listening in, the Zoom access information can be found in the school committee's meeting posting on mytowngovernment.org/01503.
Thank you, Margaret. Is there any general comment at this time from the public? Seeing none. We will start our hearings, appointments, and presentations with Highway Facility Superintendent Dave Smith to give his monthly report.
Oh, Sam.
I thought he was there a minute ago.
There he is.
There, yeah.
There he is.
I got relocated for a minute.
You got your hair's cut.
Yeah, it's the first time using it. So is it working?
Handsome as always, Mr. Smith.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I trust everybody received their report that I sent out this morning.
Yes.
Okay, so basically ongoing maintenance with roadsides, trees still being a big issue. I had Fitzy and Jimmy run out and drive every road in town and come up with a list of trees that if a branch or the tree fell and it had any interference with the power lines, to log it. And they came up with 634 trees. I did forward that. I forwarded that list to National Grid. They did respond and said the forester would be in touch. So hopefully we can get something out of them. Other than that, the AC unit's hanging on. For those of you that are working in town office, it's keep your fingers crossed. We moved the Council on Aging director back into the building downstairs and put up some shelves for her, so she was pretty happy. And 1870 manager, Victoria?
Lisa.
Sorry, Kelly. She's extremely ecstatic with the assistance that she has been getting from Steve. I just wanted to pass that along.
Good.
Other than that, business as usual.
Anybody have any questions? Peg.
Peg always has a question for me.
That's my job.
Yeah.
Hey, so, Mr. Smith, you came up with 634 trees that National Grid maybe can do something with. What's the balance of the non-National Grid trees-ish?
So a year ago, I went out and I stopped counting at like 860. So there's at least 200 more or 300 more that are. Now, you got to remember, the trees are going to die continually. Well, this isn't the end of it. Some of these trees that were damaged aren't just going to, they're not going to recover. So I would suggest or anticipate for the next 3 or 4 years, we're still going to have trees dying from the previous gypsy moth infestation as well as the drought. They're just not going to recover. They get hit too hard.
Okay. All right, just trying to get an idea. I know this was a late request today. You probably didn't see it. Have you had a chance to swing by the gazebo at South Common?
I'm going to look at that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
And what exactly are they trying to do down there?
Margaret?
They'd like to have a little performance, get some seniors out of their houses in an outdoor environment, in a socially distanced, safe way, and have either a single performer do like a living history performance or do some sort of small musical thing. So just to have the performer up on the gazebo.
Okay, so the seniors aren't going to be going up and down. I had a little concern with that.
No, No, it's for the performer.
It's a tug of war. It's a tug of war through the gazebo.
I like that.
Pull the senior across the stage. All right. No, and it's funny because the only reason that I asked, I had reached out to Julie Lee and let her know about the snack shack. And she said, any idea we can have them come down and take a look at the gazebo? I guess the side railings aren't in like all that good shape. So Margaret's email was impeccably timed this afternoon for that. Okay. All right.
I will look at that tomorrow, and if it's something that can be repaired, we'll repair it.
Okay,
If it-
cool. All right. And then Margaret, this is kind of like a combination, you and Dave. Question regarding signs around poles in town. I see that that's cropping back up again. Where are we with that? So maybe it's more of a Margaret than a Dave.
I
Margaret?
can answer because I learned something last week. For whatever reason, I thought the issue with signs was like advertising signs. And so a couple of weeks ago, I went around town on a weekend and just drove around the streets looking for signs like, we buy houses, or, we, sell your used car to us. But then I received clarification that it's actually like posted no trespassing signs and any kind of signs like that. So I have not, I only learned this last week, so I'm just wrapping my head around it because I thought I was driving around town not finding anything except lawn signs. There are plenty of lawn signs all over the place, by the way. But yeah, I just learned last week that it's for, posted no trespassing and things like that. So I can't answer exactly where we're at with that or what the highway department's plans are to take down those types of signs.
Dave, are you still ripping them down when you find? I've stopped because, well, I have no commute anymore. So, there's really none that Sharon's hanging up on signs across, the street from me. So I can't rip anything down. But is there anything that you're finding as you guys are going around town for signs?
So I pick up the like the mosquito squad signs and that type of people that are advertising, companies that are advertising that are stuck in the side of the road or stuck to a tree.
Okay.
I haven't seen a whole bunch of those, honestly. I picked up a few last week over on 62 going into Hudson.
Yeah, that's big right there by the like the gas station right before
Yes.
you get on to 495. That tree, that post is just littered one side in the back. Okay. Okay.
I drive, just to add to that, I drive Boylston Road at least twice a day, every day. And so that's where some of these posted no trespassing signs are. I'm happy to pull over and pull them off the poles anyway, because I saw a couple on utility poles. So I could start with those, and if I don't get accosted, I could try more.
Well, I think between all of us, we could probably find money to bail you out, Margaret. So, you're all good. Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
I'm so sorry to belabor this. I have one, I received a question this afternoon. Dave, what's the status of the blinky signs axle? Is it able to move now?
Yes, we have. We patched it up enough to move it, but we also finally got the replacement axle, so we can fix that up in short order. So it'll be ready to go.
Okay. Any other questions for Dave? Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
Dave. Have a good night.
And we have the Historical Commission. Do we have members from the Historical Commission with us this evening?
That's so.
I only see June Miller and no Barry yet. If you, through the chair, if you'd like, I can at least introduce this, unless June would like to.
June's still on mute.
Yes, she is.
Hi, June.
Hi, Margaret. Hi, everybody.
You want to go ahead, Margaret?
Sure. So I attended the Historical Commission's meeting last week where they voted to recommend this evening that the board approve the expenditure of $8,500 to conduct a professional structural survey at the Bullard House. The person that they requested a quote from has, I guess, significant expertise in this area and has done other things in town. I can let Barry speak to any issues or anything with the Historical Society, but Mr. Wohlhuter came highly recommended. He provided the quote, and if the board, the reason for this being brought forward in part is to not only comprehensively address the structural condition and needs of the building, but to also potentially qualify for historical preservation project grant funding through the state. The state does require that comprehensive building surveys or architectural designs be done in order to even apply for those grants. So that's what the impetus of this was. And I guess I just want to add that if the select board approves the expenditure this evening based on the Historical Commission's recommendations, I will coordinate a site visit between the Historical Commission and Mr. Wohlhuter so everyone is on the same page and understands the work that's to be done. Okay. June, did I get that right?
You did. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add, June?
It's very necessary to do this because it is a comprehensive way to look at something that has been languishing for a long, long time.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board? And Peg already has her hand up. Go ahead.
So June, just a question to you. So in the recommendation, it says to comprehensively address the structural condition and the needs of the building. Having gone in there maybe a year ago, it's pretty packed. So is there a plan to move everything out? And if so, where's it going? What's going? What other space, does historical actually have right now for their items? So just kind of like looking at that, because I'm thinking that you can't do a comprehensive structural look unless you have a clean building inside and out, first floor and second.
You're right. There are many, many things in the way, and we don't really have any more space available to house them safely. What is in room 113 at the town offices, that by and large should go to the new building, the new curatorial building, which is still awaiting
The HVAC?
an HVAC unit. It's possible if that goes forward quickly. I shouldn't say quickly because it's a huge job to move all of that, and we need a lot of assistance, just muscle assistance mostly. But there are many things in the Bullard House that perhaps could temporarily be housed in somewhere else. But we don't have a somewhere else. The only other place we have right now is room 113, which is full until we go to the curatorial, the new building. We have the red fire station, which is still available to us with some large items that we've been allowed to put there. We don't know how long that building will remain available. And it would not be secure for the kinds of things that are in the Bullard House, which are ephemera, papers, documents, photographs, that I'll say valuable furniture, but I don't mean treasures, but they are antiques. So we have a space for need.
So do you have any type of inventory to know either what you have at the Bullard House and what you have downstairs and what's over at the old fire barn.
Yes, last Wednesday, after the Historical Commission met on Tuesday, Barry and I went down to room 113, and we also went up into what I call the attic. It's not the attic, it's the mechanical room in the town offices. It's above the second floor.
It's over the public safety side.
That's right. That's right. So we made a list of what's in that room. We made a generalized inventory of the kinds of items that we have in room 113. And then the kinds of items we have in room 113, we also have in the Bullard House. The red fire station has a few architectural features like a pilaster and a newel post. It has doors, a collection of doors that represent historic periods. And they're usually all from Berlin residences, places that have been demolished or renovated, and doors have been taken to keep for reuse and for educational purposes too. I can read you a long list of the kinds of things we have in room 113.
No, I mean, I'm not so much concerned about 113 because that's pretty, that's pretty safe. It's if, this gentleman needs to get into the Bullard House to do the structural condition. I guess I'm just, having been there, as I said, back probably in the winter with Mr. Ager, and I think Dave Smith was with me, and Lisa, there was somebody else with me there. I'm just concerned where all that is going to go and what all that really is. So I don't know, Margaret, maybe I look to you. I mean, obviously we need the condition looked at to know what we need to do to the building, but there's a lot of stuff in the Bullard House, and I just don't want to, like you do with the house. Oh, we got to paint the kitchen, everything into the living room. Oh, okay, now we got to paint the living room, everything into the kitchen. I mean, there's just not that much room in the Bullard House.
Yeah, that's been a pattern for the work that's already been done, is to continually move things from one place to another, and it's very frustrating. Tim, I think when we meet with Tim, if you do approve the proposal, he will tell us. Barry is calling me. Do you suppose he doesn't have the webinar ID?
Mary's waving.
Oh, he's here?
No.
Chief Galvin would like to be heard.
Barry?
Chief Galvin has his hand up.
Okay.
Okay, he's not able to access, and he doesn't know why.
I think you've got it covered, June.
I already told Margaret that he was having technical problems connecting.
I think, Mary, are you at home?
No, looks like she's in the office.
She's in the office.
I just called him.
Okay, all right, I'll tell them. Okay.
Chief, your mic is open.
Barry says he would like to join you in the office, Mary.
Oh, Barry's in the building?
He may,
Oh,
no, I think
doesn't
he's
live far
home,
away.
but he's going to come as quickly as he can. I don't know, maybe he is in the office, but.
If I could, the board does have another appointment with the Jim Spencer of the school committee coming up shortly. June, I think you've done a great job explaining this. As far as storage, I think I know I've discussed with the historical commission the expansion of requested storage space to house artifacts. And with regard to the old fire station, we don't necessarily know what the future of that building holds. We do know that we insure it. It is one of our underutilized buildings, and we have to continually look at that. That said, I would advocate to the board on behalf of the Historical Commission to allow that building to be used for temporary storage in order for the structural survey to be done at the Bullard House. So we could possibly line up the highway crew to help move things over to that building, but it needs to be with an understanding that it's going to be, for temporary storage, just to clear the way for Mr. Wolhuter to get into the Bullard House. Does that sound reasonable?
There are things that could be secured at the Red Fire Station, but I don't think we would want to put photographs in ephemera there, or the antique furniture, because it's painted and I don't believe there's any climate control in the fire station. So we do, I guess what would be the most logical would be to move as much as we can into 113, into the new building. And then perhaps just temporarily retain some of the painted furniture and things that will be in Tim's Way in room 113, at least, for a little while.
I assume that this can be worked out
Mhm.
one way or the other.
So can we get a start date and a definitive end date? Because my fear is that everything is going to move and then it sits. And then it never moves where it's supposed to move, or nothing's ever done with it. So that's just kind of my concern. And, if we say, making this up, 2 weeks from now is our end date. What happens when the stuff isn't moved at the end of those 2 weeks? Are we just gonna let it sit? Type of thing?
I think the first thing we have to do is get things moved just enough so that Tim can come and take a look. Correct?
Yes. He can take, I think he can take a look with us without moving much of anything, but then right off, as soon as he's ready to start, that 30-day window that we've allowed him to, or will allow him to work, we're going to have to get that stuff out of his way very quickly.
Through the chair, he did make it clear when he submitted his estimate that he needed, in order to do as thorough a job as possible, and we certainly want that, he needs access to all parts of the building, particularly the attic and the cellar. So those areas must be clean for him to get through.
Okay.
So, and yes, I agree that we can work this out to make sure that he has the room he needs to access those areas.
Okay.
So can we get an end date, Margaret, then?
An end date for,
Well, for the information to be,
Barry is present in
hey,
town office.
Mr. Yeager.
I don't know how much he can hear us or we can hear him.
No, we can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Oh, and I can hear him.
Okay.
Okay, so through the chair, Peg just asked for an end date. So according to the Historical Commission's vote, the structural survey work is going to be required to be completed 30 days from the date of the town's written authorization to proceed, unless otherwise mutually agreed to in writing by a majority of the Historical Commission and the contractor. So this 30-day period is going to depend on Tim's availability. It's going to depend on the things being moved out of Tim's way. So right after the board's approval tonight, if the board does approve, I am going to work on scheduling a site visit between the Historical Commission and Tim to get the ball rolling. I hope that answers the question.
We're prepared to move things around as he needs us to do that. But it would also be good if we had a place to move some things too.
I mean, if we're talking about starting soon and taking 30 days, that means you're done by the, end of September, maybe let's say middle of October. Could we temporarily use Barnes Hall until the middle of October? Is there rentals going on in that building right now between now and the middle of October?
There are rentals there.
Oh, that's a good thing then.
It says working on it.
Can, through the chair, can some of the pieces be moved to the curatorial building, the pieces that are more sensitive, and then have some pieces moved over here? There's not a whole heck of a lot of room downstairs in the room here,
No,
but maybe there's a possibility that a few things could be moved here, or temporarily at the old fire station.
we have a proposal which wasn't really ready to give you tonight, but it will be for your next meeting, for some space at the Red Fire Station, the old former Red Fire Station, that we could use for some of our larger items, and that will both help us with what's in the room downstairs now here and other things in other places. That would help us a great deal if we can get that arranged before we start moving out of this building. But we will present that to you at your next meeting if we can get an appointment.
Okay,
In fact, we can get you the information prior to that meeting, to the selectmen.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have talked about this problem before with the select board, but we haven't come up with a specific thing up to this point. So this will be a more specific proposal.
okay. How is that for you, Scott and Peg?
I'm good.
I have concerns, but I mean, I don't want to be the stick in the mud and hold this up. But again, I just want to, I mean, Mr. Ager said we have a plan, so I trust him that he has a plan. So I would love to see the plan. I just want to know that, Margaret's going to coordinate and the site walk is going to be on X and the work's going to start on X. So then for order for the work to start these weeks, the information or the material is going, here, there, and everywhere. 30 days later, check, it's on the calendar, make up a date, it's October 1st. And on October 2nd, then the information and the detail starts to travel back to the bullet house. So you're not gonna have it sitting in perpetuity downstairs, upstairs, over at the fire barn, in other places scattered around Berlin. I'm just looking for that definitive, this is what we're gonna do, when we're gonna do it by.
Okay,
In regard to that, let me just comment that when Tim does this survey, he may have to take some things apart. And so we can't probably put most things that we take out of there back there after the survey. We probably still got to have them someplace else. So, but when is the board's next meeting?
2 weeks, right?
17th,
um,
24th.
yeah.
Margaret's out, so.
well,
24th.
that's to be discussed, actually. I was gonna ask that question at the end during comments and questions. It could be the 17th or it could be the 31st. So,
So is there any way to wait until we get the plan back from Mr. Ager to really take a look at it? Or is that just gonna be
I think we
a
need,
problem longer?
I think we need to take some action tonight, at least accept the bid.
Yeah, because I worry if we delay too far, then the end date of moving things back starts happening when there could be snow on the ground. And I'd rather, that's going to make it harder to move things back.
Well, there's also going to be an issue with if there's things that are going to be happening as far as construction, those things are not going to move back right away.
Mhm.
I'm wondering whether we could, I mean, one of the things that we've got to do is actually meet with Tim on site. And after we've had that meeting, we'll have a better idea of how much material has to be moved out for this survey.
Yeah.
So that isn't we don't yet know exactly what we might have to get out of there before this survey.
Perhaps you could speak with Tim, either Barry or Margaret could speak with Tim and ask how cleaned out does it need to be for this?
Mhm.
I think we're going to have to wait till we have our on-site visit with him to do that.
So
Through the
Margaret-
chair, which I am prepared to schedule that site visit tomorrow. I'll be reaching out to the Historical Commission and to Tim tomorrow to see if we can get a date within I'd say within 2 weeks, they need to be there on site.
In other
So-
words, we would have that accomplished before you have your next meeting.
Yep.
So then, Margaret, do you need an approval on this to have a site visit, or can you have the site visit and then we can decide?
I think,
A site visit's part of his work. I mean, if I'm a contractor, I'm not going to do the work if I don't believe I'm actually going to get the contract.
yeah, I would say, that the approval for the $8,500 should happen in order to move forward with a site visit as part of his work.
When you line up the date for the site visit, Margaret, can you ask definitively
Mhm,
how much of things need to be moved so that
mhm.
what he needs to access so that there could be a heads up for that
Yep,
before he comes?
yep.
And then for our next meeting, if our next meeting is the 31st, then by then the site visit would have happened. Potentially some stuff would have been moved. We'll have a good sense of when we think the structural survey will be done and when we can start moving things back. So a
Okay.
report on the 31st can be so that this doesn't fall off our radars.
Right. That sound like a plan?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, my hope is that we will have made significant progress by the 31st, so,
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Then are there any other questions from the board?
I want to, June and Barry, if moving needs some muscle, if I had a couple days advance notice, I might be able to round up a couple of bodies from up here to come down and help.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
that would be great.
I would, and I would line up, I would ask Dave to line up the highway crew to help.
Okay. Sounds good. Do I hear a motion to approve the structural survey recommendation?
I'll move to approve the structural survey recommendation. I'm not great at figuring out how I have to word these when I say this, though. It's what, $8,500 to come out of the funds approved at, I don't have it in front of me, the town meeting fund. Margaret, well, I'm sure will fill me in on where I'm.
It's Article 16 of the May 2nd, 2016 annual town meeting.
So 8,500 out of Article 16 to a lot of 16s, out of the 2016 town meeting.
Okay. Would you like to second that, Peg?
Yeah, I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay. We've got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions before we take a vote?
Just to reiterate, by the end of the month, I definitely want plan in hand, or I respectfully request the right to revisit this whole proposal going forward.
Okay. Then we will take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Passes unanimously.
Try to get that proposal out to you folks this week.
All right.
Thanks, Mr. Ager.
Thank you.
All right. And the next item on our agenda is, I believe we've got Jim Spencer from Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, the school committee chair, to talk about the special town election for regional school committee. Oh, did Tom Galvin, did he still want to ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm okay. I'm trying to multitask, and I'm actually coaching the softball game, and I hit the button by mistake.
Okay.
Here's Jim.
I'm here.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm terrific. How is everybody else doing? I appreciate you guys letting me join.
Do you want to be called Jim or James?
Jim is perfectly fine.
Okay. So I did read your letter about the meeting you're having tomorrow night to discuss the plans for reopening schools. And we did get a letter in our packets, I believe it was, for the from you asking to request that a 1 4-year Berlin seat and 2 2-year Berlin seats be included on a special district-wide town election to be held concurrently with the election number 2020. Right?
That is correct.
So, okay. And is there anything else, Margaret, that we need to know? Or I know Eloise was unable to come tonight.
Eloise's simple request was that the board open the warrant for this special town election. And I asked Jim to join the board just to discuss the purpose of the special town election for November 3rd. So we could all, have a full understanding of what's happening with the election, special town election, and why it's happening on November 3rd.
Okay. I know it was agreed to according to the
Yeah, I can
agreement.
provide a little background. I can provide some background quickly if that would help the committee, the board.
Sure.
So a couple things, right? So when the two communities passed regionalization last year, as part of that project, when you become a district, you move from your standard May elections to a more statewide election basis to be held in November. It also changes the terms for your seats and the tenure of those seats. So regardless of the need for the special election, an election moving forward for school committee will happen during November elections. That is part of the regionalization district agreement and part of the statewide agreements as it relates to school districts. The challenge faced with, as the current chair, I wasn't chair during regionalization, but I am the chair, so this falls under me currently, is part of that regionalization agreement. It was, full admittedly, it was missed or not documented correctly in regards to whose requirement it was at the time to submit our paperwork in April to add ourselves to the statewide election. So in theory, we would be on your ballots, same as the other elections you'd be voting on come November. Because we missed that time frame to submit that request, I and the committee worked with our legal and the Secretary of the State to determine what our options were for this particular election cycle. We were not approved a waiver to file late, and we were told by the Secretary of State we need to work with our two communities to have a special election. So the reason it is happening on the election date is because that is when it would typically happen. But it needs to be a special election because we did not meet our requirements for our request to get on the November ballot.
Okay. Are there any questions for Jim?
I just want to add that it's understandable that this was missed because the requirement to get on a state election ballot is much, much earlier than the requirement to get on a local election ballot. So I do understand the confusion there. Now, as I said, Eloise's simple request was that the board open the special town election warrant. I am still waiting for her on nomination paper filing deadline, so I don't have that information tonight. So this would simply, the board's vote tonight would simply be to open the special town election warrant with further details to follow.
And for how long would this be open, Margaret?
I guess until nomination papers need to be filed. I don't know if Mary, I think she's talking to Mary. I don't know how long it needs to be opened for. So I don't have any of those details. This is what I meant last week and I said, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. So I don't have those details. I don't know how long.
And did Eloise say exactly when to open it? Did she mean tonight?
She wanted it opened. She wanted it opened right away.
Okay.
But she did not say for how long or any other requirements.
Yeah, and if we don't have another meeting until the end of August, there's no way to change it unless we have a special meeting.
Just to provide some feedback, I don't know, and I'll have to rely on obviously the administrators and the clerks in town to add obviously their input in speaking with our school committee in district legal. His response was that the parameters remain the same as a standard town election, standard parameters of filing dates, requirement of signatures, and timelines from that standpoint. That's what I was directed about, but I would obviously want to confirm that with the folks responsible for that. The only thing that'll change in this election and moving forward with all of our continuing elections is candidates will be on ballots in both communities. So voters in Berlin and Boylston will be voting on the members in each community. So any candidate will be filing papers in each community to get onto their ballot. But then I went back and asked the question around, well, is there a requirement to gain signatures in each community? And his response was he does not believe so. The signatures only need to be for their community that they're running for, and the town clerks will assist in validating or approving the signatures for each other.
So just to be clear, Jim, we will be voting for Berlin and Boylston members of the school committee?
Yep, it's correct. The regional agreement still states it has to remain a 3-member from Boylston and a 3-member from Berlin community. It cannot, that does not change. So that doesn't affect the races in any way of that standpoint. What can play a role is, for instance, all 6 candidates, because we're a transitional regional committee, all current 6 school committee members will need to run for office in November. All 6, if they want to, if they are planning on rerunning, all 6 seats will be open. Maybe I should say it that way. All 6 seats.
And they would be on, and they would be on the ballot in both towns.
In both towns. So say you had 5 individuals run for 3 seats in Boylston, the Berlin voting would play a role in the Boylston election.
Okay. Mary, you have a question?
I called Eloise at home, and Eloise said that she put it on Cliff Laporte, who was going to ask the state to confirm in like configured governmental structures for a regional school committee, because it's not apples to apples in the usual configuration, as to how long the warrant's going to remain open for. So she's still waiting for that answer, so she can't tell you the closure time frame.
Okay. All right. Well, I think at some point we will have to decide when the warrant would be closed. We could still, Margaret, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, through the chair. We have to keep in mind that by opening the special town election warrant, first of all, it looks, and this is just on my quick count backwards from the election date, that looks like the nomination papers would be due to the registrar of voters by September 15th. So it's 49 days prior to the election. Also, the select board has every right to present ballot questions, which have to be done 35 days prior to an election. So this, I don't know. I know we have to wait until Eloise gets back to us with a time for closing, but it could be September 15th or later. So
we could also, by leaving it open, could end up with some citizen petitions. Am I correct?
that would be an initiative. That would be an initiative petition. I don't know. I think that's another Eloise question.
Okay. Well, I realize that there's a problem. And we do need to open the warrant to help solve this problem. So do I hear questions or comments from the board?
Well, there's a wicked feedback.
I'm getting feedback.
We hear you twice. We hear you speak and then we hear you again.
I know.
Let me try muting myself, and maybe that, because I'm on a mobile, so maybe if I mute myself, it'll help you guys.
So then, no, there's no echo.
I apologize, we don't have all the details that are needed, just that Eloise is recommending that the warrant be opened.
So is there any harm or danger to open the warrant without setting a close date?
Well, Chris's point is that somebody could drive a truck through and then potentially start loading up all these initiatives on the ballot if we don't have an end date.
Well, it could happen. I'm just saying, I mean, that could happen even if it's only open for a week.
Correct.
I mean, I go that the town clerk is asking us to open it up. And
Yep.
I have not known a town ballot that has been overwhelmed with citizen initiatives in the last 10 years that I've been in town. And I'm inclined to, you know, if a department head has asked for something and I can't find a serious reason not to do it, I'm inclined to motion to open the warrant.
Okay.
Can we open it contingently? You know, with a revisit and whenever we meet in a couple weeks, or maybe we have a special meeting once Cliff/Eloise gets the information.
Yeah, maybe we could just get an update from Eloise through Margaret as to her suggestion. So Scott, did I hear you say you would make that motion?
Well, the problem with motions is that I have the wording and I have to get down. So I believe that I am motioning to open the warrant for a November 3rd, is it?
Yes.
A special election for the vacancy of one Berlin vacancy for a 4-year school board term and 2 vacancies for 2-year terms. Is there a motion then? The Boylston seats then aren't part of this?
Can you answer that, Jim?
Yes, because I will be having the same conversation with the Boylston. But that you bring up a good point, because the 3 seats need to be on the ballot. Should the Boylston seats be on there? I would argue that they probably do need to be on there, right? Being that you're going to add it to.
If they're going to be on the ballot.
Well, I'm assuming I was on the committee, the regionalization committee, before it went to town meeting, and I couldn't remember whether we decided we're doing all 6 members in both towns or not.
Eloise just confirmed that that's the case, and candidates have to pull papers from both clerk's office.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
We're definitely voting. We definitely have to be on the ballot in both towns for all 6. Correct.
Okay.
So I believe, my
just-
motion then is to open the warrants for November 3rd election for 2 4-year Boylston vacancies on school board, 1 2-year vacancy for Boylston and school district, 1 4-year Berlin school board vacancy, and 2 2-year Berlin vacancies for a total of 6 positions, as outlined in the Berlin-Boylston agreement.
Okay. Is that okay, Mary? Were you she had her hand up. You're good?
I was trying to read from the agreement that I do have up in front of me.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott. You did as well as could be expected.
Yes, very good. All right. I will second that motion. And are there any questions or comments before we take a vote? All right. Seeing none, let's take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Don't I?
Hawkins, aye.
Okay.
And to confirm, the closing date will be set at a later point?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so we will consult with Boylston too on this to make sure that the dates coincide, well, to the extent they can coincide, they would coincide. Right. Got it.
And so I don't know where I or someone, a note that on that August 31st meeting, I think we should make sure this is an agenda item.
Yes. All right.
Maybe
thank you,
Eloise
Jim.
could,
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your understanding and willingness to work with us on this particular subject. I can assure you, assuming I'm still there and I don't get voted out in November, I'll make sure that 2 years from now I make sure we don't miss that date. So we won't have to have this conversation again.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you, everybody.
thank you,
Yeah.
Good
Jim.
night.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. I believe we're moving on to our town administrator report.
Okay. First of all, just under general COVID updates, as most people probably already know, that the state put into effect on August 1st, a requirement that all visitors and residents returning to Massachusetts from high-risk states either quarantine for 14 days or get tested and produce results of their tests. I don't know how the state intends to enforce this, but those who don't comply could face a $500 fine per day. And I just want to note that this applies to employees as well. So for employees returning to work, they're going to be under the very same rules as visitors or as residents coming back to the state in general. In fact, we already have this in place for employees, so that's continuing. The HR compensation and classification and personnel policies and procedures updates. Right before the meeting tonight, I saw 2 emails from our consultant come through, but I have not read them yet. So I'm assuming we are starting to get reports, draft reports for the town's review on those updates. DCR finally confirmed last week in writing that the remaining $4,822.41 in the community garden fund balance can be spent on other on items other than what was initially requested. So these would be upgrades to the shed, some fencing, and some more raised beds. And speaking of Ag Commission, or the community garden, the Agricultural Commission has requested, and I know that a request from the Historical Commission is also forthcoming, to hold outdoor meetings in compliance with all COVID-19 safety protocols, ADA requirements, and the open meeting law. So the Ag Commission is going to be posting a meeting to be held outdoors at the community garden on April 11th. And I am advising boards and committees who do want to do this outside in accordance with the state's reopening protocols to also post a rain date using the identical agenda. And that way they can be covered if the weather doesn't hold out for their initial plan date. The next item I am going to request for a board's vote of support on. So the Chief Clark, had actually submitted an authorization for the Public Safety Administrative Assistant to sign payrolls on his behalf in his absence, and he did this under the Strong Chief Statute. However, Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 41 governs the submission of payroll, the certification and submission of payroll in municipalities. And so it specifically requires that the department head name a designee, but it requires the approval of the Board of Selectmen to process and submit that payroll. So I am asking for the board's support in authorizing Sharon McGowan to sign and submit the fire department EMS payroll in the chief's absence. He is away on vacation this week. And that in this and future instances, I, as the town administrator and agent of the board, be authorized to co-sign that payroll. So it wouldn't be just that single signature, it would require my signature as well. So I would ask for the board's support on that so we can process payroll in a timely manner.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve Sharon McGowan to sign and submit fire department and EMS payroll in the fire chief's absent, along with town administrator co-authorization of such document.
I will second.
Okay. We'll take a vote. Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay, thank you all for that. Mary, if you're listening, June will need the copy of the minutes for this for processing. All right, the next item that I added, there's been a lot going on here. So the town of Hudson, there was a request that I received a few weeks ago, probably more than a few weeks ago now, probably a month and a half ago, requesting that the town of Hudson establish policies, like a notification policy to the town of Berlin when a property owner who is trying to develop a parcel in Berlin wants to connect to Hudson's public water and sewer. And I think this is all in an effort to try to manage the town's growth and understand what parcels are being developed. So I reached out to Hudson. And they have developed a very simple information sharing policy that's applicable to all of their abutting towns. However, they've made it clear that it is still Hudson's authority to approve or disapprove the connections. The thing that has changed, or that will change, we hope, is that Berlin will actually be notified, and it's going to be Berlin's Board of Health, Planning Board, and Select Board that will all be notified of these applications to connect. Okay, so there are a couple of things that that were on social media in the past couple of weeks. Recently, there were several residents of Berlin and neighboring towns that expressed concerns with increasing electric bills or spikes in their electric bills. And so we did a little bit of investigation and found that the town's electricity supply contract with Constellation has not changed rates since November 2019. So we learned that that wasn't the issue with the spikes. So National Grid explained in turn that their delivery rates have increased. And there are more details for residents who want a little more information. We have details and links on the town's website so that people can see what the background is on the delivery rates from National Grid. So we were able to at least find that answer, that was that's been the cause. In addition, I would think to people being home more often and the extreme heat, running air conditioners, I would assume has some part in this. Dave talked about town trees this evening. And I would encourage residents to contact Dave as the highway superintendent directly with any questions and concerns regarding town trees. His contact information is all on the town's website for people to reach out to him. The board, at the board's last meeting, on July 13th, the board reviewed and expressed support for certain projects to be requested of our legislators for funding in the state's legislative budget. And Senator Tran informed the board, I think it was, when was it? Last week, Thursday, I think. That he has secured what we call the Snack Shack project and an amount of $100,000 in the Economic Development Bond Bill. As he explained it, though, this is not just to upgrade the Snack Shack. This would be a combination of things. If we were lucky enough to have that full $100,000 approved, it would cover the cost of the Snack Shack upgrades and the court renovations. So fingers crossed that that moves through. He'll keep us posted. On, oh gosh, my days are all mixed up from last week. One day last week, Council on Aging Director Victoria Flynn, Chief Galvin, and I talked with the executive committee of the Berlin Seniors Group. And we talked about this performance that we touched on a little while ago. They have received a grant, Berlin Seniors has received a grant from the Cultural Council to have a performance for seniors. And since they were awarded that grant, everything changed with COVID. So they are, in coordination with us, we're all trying to work together to actually come up with a date for an outdoor performance using this Cultural Council grant. We'll get our public safety on board to provide waters, maybe doing some ushering of residents so we can be sure that people are socially distanced. But we all thought that this was a good way to get people who might not be so confident to get out of their houses to actually get out of their houses and get together in a safe and healthy way. So we're working on that now. The next item is regarding the Love All Serve All organization or the foundation, LASA. The board met with some of the representatives of LASA not too long ago, and then we had a follow-up meeting with some stakeholders. So one of the representatives of LASA has asked about a potential pathway to developing an MOU with the town for partnerships. And the sense I get is that these would be collaborative partnerships, not MOUs for, retaining, or generating revenues or things like that, but things that we could undertake collaboratively with LASA that would center around environmental, social, and cultural things. A couple of ideas that I thought of were that we had discussed before were kind of a I don't want to say reincarnation, but we are really weak on the community emergency response team right now. We don't have a lot of members, and they expressed support in partnering with us on that, where we could build a stronger and more resilient CERT team in town. I mentioned to them that our fire chief is looking at possibly doing community CPR and first aid courses. Maybe that's something that we could offer. But I told him that I would present his question to the board tonight, just to try to get some feedback as to what the board might think about partnerships with this organization that would benefit the entire community. So if you could think about that, I would really appreciate it. Attached to my town administrator report tonight is the early voting calendar for the state primary. So I'm not going to read the entire thing, but so residents know, this information is posted on the website, and early voting will begin on August 22nd during specified hours posted by the town clerk's office. The last thing I want to mention in my report tonight is on the former flat penny and on the tracks. I know that it's well known now, the situation with an individual that was associated with that business. However, we have learned that the appeal at the ABCC has been withdrawn. So there is no appeal pending with the ABCC on the alcohol license for the flat penny. So I just wanted to share that as well. And I think that's all I've got for tonight.
Margaret, have you gotten any feedback on the social media policy that you put out?
I got an email this evening right before the meeting from our consultant. I'm guessing that she might have some draft personnel policies in there. I will look tomorrow morning, first thing.
Oh, no,
see if it's included.
I mean, even the one that you sent out to department heads and people who have.
Oh, the email? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just the one that you sort of.
So with regard to employees and town officials, I sent out an email that actually contained some guidelines on statements to include on town social media sites. And in addition, town officials and employees can, under the First Amendment, speak for themselves on private social media sites. But I know that any social media policy would include a provision that the employees or the town officials should specify that they are speaking for themselves and not on behalf of the town. So that the wording on that varies from policy to policy. I'll see what our consultant comes up with, but that's what I have at this moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Peg.
So Margaret, I have three on
Okay.
the HR compensation and classification and policy procedures updates. When
Yep.
is the board going to be privy to that information?
I see that the consultant sent me a confidential email this morning. I think by your next meeting, you'll have some information.
Okay. So the end of
I've
August.
also told the personnel committee that I'm going to share it with them too, as they're going to have to go through, especially the comp and class matrix, to kind of evaluate that and see where we are on our market rates.
Okay, thank you. Second one. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Maplewood. Yes. Could you kind of add a little bit more information on what's going on with them and what's expected back to us by the 5th, which is Wednesday?
So I'm still learning as I go. So I've learned that Weston and Sampson, as the town's agent, receives these packets for the town's approval of the LSP. Weston and Sampson reviews them and gets them back and just notifies the town. I feel that it's absolutely necessary to include Weston and Sampson on that review, as they know what they're looking for, as opposed to the town, which you need expertise in that area to understand what you're looking for. DEP is heavily involved, and the soil import activity is heavily regulated by DEP. So I learned that today, that Weston and Sampson actually is going to be reviewing and sending that back. With regard to, I've had several other questions on Maplewood Farm. And I know Mary sent me something tonight. I requested a copy of the ACO, of DEP's ACO. Mary, I apologize. You sent me some things and I didn't have time to look at them yet. But I have questions on volume. I have questions on overall volume. I have questions on when the import activity will end. You know, at what point are they going to reach the threshold of the import? And would the town see any relief at that point? So I have several questions on this that I can't answer yet, and I'm still trying to gather info.
Yeah, because to me, I mean, that's been going on for years. I mean, one would think that there would come a point in time where it would be done, and we would be done forking out however many tens of thousands of dollars, you know, on this. That I don't want to see this go on in perpetuity because, well, that's the way that it was set up years ago. I think we need to rectify it and either go back and make some type of final decision, but just to keep paying X amount of dollars a year really is not in the best fiscal interest of the town.
Have you found the documents associated with it, Margaret?
I have some. I'm certain I don't have them all, but I have some. I was really particularly interested, and I've actually contacted George Nassels. He and I have gone back and forth about the issue of the volume. If it is noted in that ACO, we want to know that, and we want to know exactly who's tracking the import. Where are they at with the threshold as far as
Well, I know that
loads?
when I went up on a site visit, because I was sort of the liaison to the project, I think it was DEP said that it would be a few more years. And I don't remember if that was a year or 2 years ago. I don't know that there's anything written anywhere else.
So can we ask for a complete inventory of all the documents and what should be there and what should be signed for all of us to look at? Because I just don't want the town getting bamboozled into paying out money that we don't have to pay because somewhere it's not stipulated that there's an end date.
Well, I think it might be a good idea maybe to have a couple of people get together, whether it's DEP, somebody from Weston Sampson. I mean, I have a little bit of background information, not a lot.
I mean, isn't this all governed by a out of court settlement? I mean,
This is a settlement agreement, which that's one of the documents I have. It does not specify, but I'm really particularly interested in the ACO. I want to know.
I'm not sure that there is an ACO yet. I don't know that we ever signed one ourselves. We said it was
That
all
is
right to
correct.
get DEP, we said it was okay to get DEP involved, and that was the paperwork we signed, but we didn't sign an ACO yet.
Well, it wasn't for you to sign anyhow. The last DEP draft we have from October 2018 asks for Maplewood to sign and Lighthouse to sign, the provider of the soil, and not the town. I mean, the town sent a letter of encouragement
Right.
asking that the ACO move forward, but it never did come to be that we ever saw. And I'm looking at the state's website right now. It's not listed there.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah, we have some much more digging to do on this and see where we're.
And then, Margaret, my last question to you on the state primary where you listed all the dates down the bottom, she said absentee ballot applications are available outside the clerk's office, but given that the building is kind of on lockdown, then I'm assuming that that means by appointment, find out when Eloise and James are there to come upstairs or grab one. Are they going to be sitting in the vestibule? I just like saying vestibule, you know, passing out.
But hasn't the Secretary of State mailed out absentee ballot applications to everybody in the state?
They've mailed out mail-in
The
voting.
requests,
Mail-in
correct.
voting, yeah. So absentee ballot applications are still going on despite the mail-in voting. I will check with Eloise to find out exactly where they're at.
Okay.
I should also add, and I know that, Eloise has the absentee ballot applications themselves. I believe there's also one on the town website. And additionally, residents can actually request in writing by letter to be sent absentee ballots. But we'll check with Eloise to find out the exact location of these.
Well, I mean, I can tell you from personal experience that I got the letter from Secretary of State Galvin. I signed my name, checky, dropped it in the green box. Within about a week, I got a lovely little primary ballot from our town clerk. Checky, sign, envelope, stick, seal, back to the town office I went, dropped in the box. It took all of like a week. So regardless of all the rhetoric that's going on, it's a pretty seamless, painless process if you truly don't want to go down and stand in line and do, you know, check in person ballot.
I know
That
that,
is excellent.
I know because of the decision we made to open the special election for the school committee too, I don't want to ask Eloise just yet, but how is that going to, I mean, I got my paper to apply to get the ballot. And if you applied for all the ballots, what about that one? I guess
You're getting that one too.
Yep.
If you apply, yep, you're getting that one too. You will be getting that one.
along with the November 3rd regular one.
You will,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's all I had, Margaret. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Scott.
I have two questions.
Okay.
The goal is to have less than Peg, but that might not hold every meeting.
All right.
The Randall Road solar project. They
Yeah.
reached out saying they want to negotiate. Has anything more happened on that line?
No, I can tell you that I have not pursued that yet. The first thing that I will do is contact the developer to see if they're willing to give us the cost data that they were asked for early on. So we'll see.
And then on River Road, we've sent out the invoice for the 100,000. I'm wondering what are the next steps to pursue or to research the 51,200 they owe for not putting together a senior care facility.
Okay, so the $51,200 payment is not due under the agreement, would not be payable until I've got a summary in front of me and I'm trying to find it. I'm thinking December 2021.
See, now I thought it was
So-
5 years after the agreement, and the agreement was over 10
There
years
were a
ago.
couple of, there were a couple of modifications on that. Let me see if I can find it in my
So
summary.
you don't need to at the moment. If we could in the next month, I'll look again.
Yep.
I didn't see
So
anything
on the
that said it.
second modification, number 3 of the second modification, the date on which River Bridge must make such extra tax payments to the towns hereby extended to the November 1 following the 4th anniversary of the effective date of this second modification, which would actually be November 1, 2022.
We did another agreement in 2018 with them? Okay.
Yeah, so that was an issue that appeared on the development agreement, the first modification, and the second modification.
Okay.
If I'm reading my summary correctly.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep.
Those are my questions.
Okay.
All right. I don't really have any right now, so we'll move on to old business. Select Board Goals and Objectives Workshop, and I believe we chose August 24th. What do we need to do in order to move forward with this?
Okay. So I am asking the board members to individually send me not more than 4 suggestions in writing that I can add to the draft list of items the board feels should be the priorities for the upcoming year. So as soon as you could get that to me, I can start populating this draft list for the board's workshop on the 24th.
Okay, I just have a quick question now.
Mm-hmm.
So among those 4 suggestions, should they be something in addition to the priorities we set for you? Or
that's up to the board. I'm
be...
going to say that I'm going to be flexible and adaptable to what the board feels are priorities, despite the list that we've already come up with. If you feel that some of those priorities need to stick, and I actually know that Maplewood is one of those priorities, which happens to be on the list too.
Well,
I'm willing to, I'm willing to just to be flexible and just go with what the board's priorities are. So
what is the priorities of? I mean, what is your take on this, Peg or Scott? I came up with six objectives, but 4 of them are already on the list that we have for Margaret.
Yeah, but the thing is, Chris, when you write in a goal and objective, it needs to be measurable. I mean, so we gave Margaret ideas. Let's just make one up. I don't know, paint the town barn a different color. An objective would be specifics. Why are you painting it? What are you going to paint it? Who's going to paint it? Who are all the people that you need involved? So to me, the goals and objectives, I think there was one that I plucked off Margaret's list and just started like going at it with specific items. And then there were 3 other ones that I came up with on my own to try and put there. So it's, to me, I look at the goals and objectives are items that not only keep Margaret accountable, but keep the 3 of us accountable in doing something or a list of some things for the town. And you know what, if we say it and we vote it, then guess what? You own it, and you need to be responsible for it. I mean, and that's why I'd like to see, if at all possible, all our additional goals and objectives, Margaret, that we provide be put up on the select board page, so that the town can see actually what we're doing and what we're working on, and what's important, when you look at for the entire town. And that was my take on it.
So select board goals and objectives, that's why I thought maybe it should just be us, not,
well,
something we could do.
Well, through the chair, you're the policy body. So you will come up with these objectives, and it's my charge, it's my duty to see that they are carried out, to see that we can administer these on a day-to-day basis, through our town staff team and otherwise. So if it can be your goals and objectives, it is your goals and objectives. They are policy objectives for the town that we're required to carry out for you.
Okay. Are you clear on that, Scott?
Yes.
Unless you want to carry them out yourself.
No, but I'm envisioning that that some will probably come from the existing list. We also might decide to drop things off that existing list, that when we look what we really want to do, that when we get through our top things we want to do, that there's too much for right now, and that we're going to deprioritize a couple of things. And although I agree that many of them should be some measurable stuff, if I'm looking at things along the lines of sort of administrative simplification and standardization, I don't think I want a specific executive saying we will make 3 rules and the agency and the town go away, because I don't know how many we necessarily want to go away, because I've not dug in deep enough. I've not been here long enough to say, you know, the bylaw on 25 swine I think should reduce to 20, you know, which is not true, but there's truth. There's a bylaw that says that. It's not true that I want to make it a priority to change it. And, you know, and I have some technical, you know, get better use of our software. I'm too new to know exactly what software are out there. But you know, I hear too often, oh, because this software is so old or the software is the wrong for this town, we pay all this extra time and energy to do it. To do interim tax bills is going to take a lot more work because we don't have the right software as this town, you know, and so, and I hate also buying software that doesn't get used to the intent it was used for. And I've heard some of those stories as well. But again, I've not been here long enough to know that I can put enough objectives to that at this point. And it could be some of mine are not as prominent because they're not as well thought out. You know, if Peg has it down where there's some good objectives and some place to go, those might get higher up, and mine might be things that we spend this next year researching so that next year when we do something like this, I can put more detail to it.
Okay, I'm just coming away with the feeling that we're just reprioritizing the goals that we set up originally and maybe adding to or deleting from.
Yeah,
No?
I mean, I think that should be an annual thing to do, because I think it's a worthy, in theory, every year there could be a new person on the select board.
Yeah.
You know, that if this was done last January pre-COVID, COVID might have changed what we think is important or not important, or might have made something that was important just not to just go away because it's not an issue even anymore.
Right, and it could be very well that, you know, things at any point, I think any of us should be able to say, listen, you know, I'd like to talk about this goal that we have again. Maybe I don't think it's quite as important as it was in the past.
Or did research on it, and there is definitely a benefit to doing it, but here's the 6 things it makes worse if you do this. Boy, in hindsight, you're right. This is not something we should proceed anymore.
Right, right.
I've approached this from my standpoint, and again, being newer, like at work, I write a risk plan and analysis, and I've done it probably 4 times. And the first one was, you know, fairly high level and amorphous because I didn't know what really I needed, wanted it and not. And every year I do it is both more specific and more relevant. And not that the first version was bad, because it still provided some guidance.
Right.
And so I'm expecting that I'll do a C-level support this year of it, and I'll get better over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also basing it on, you know, when we did goals and objectives on school committee.
Yep.
And it was a little bit different than this.
I think Peg is right. The more specific we can make it and the more details we add to it, the better off it will be.
And maybe we can talk about the, you know, the whole process, you know, when we meet. Right?
And I just want to weigh in too that this list is kind of developed so as to identify what the priorities, what the action steps are, and measure progress on these things. So this does add those layers to the whole idea of priorities and objectives. So again, from my perspective, I'm open to what the board settles on for the priorities and objectives, and I will adapt and take those and run with them.
Yeah, but Margaret, I don't think that this, you know, again, is a dump and run on Margaret. You know what?
No, and that's not what
I agree.
Right, right. You know, these,
either.
right. But these are goals that, you know, Margaret, you may be charged with, you know, making sure they get done. But I can't absolutely see, you know, handing my 3 in and saying, haha, good luck. You know, when you don't really, you know, you know, understand my intent, understand, and here comes your train, Scott, you know, understand what I'm looking for, what I want out of this. So I see this very much as a partnership between all of us. You know, maybe the person who puts it forth and it replaces number 18 on your list, I don't know, you know, they drive it a little bit more, but I can't see you just being like, oh, okay, here, I got them. That's not fair. That's not how this town should be run. the four of us should be working jointly together.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
I mean,
right.
this could easily be step one of the budget process. Because really to get these goals and objectives done are going to take resources. And as we look
Right.
at budgets, we'll look at areas to both add money to and subtract money from. This should help guide us a little bit in that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I may just send the 6 things that I came up with. Some of them are already on the list, some of them are not. See where that goes. Is there anything
Okay, and
else on
Scott
this
and Peg, if
subject
you
we
could
need
get
to
me
talk
yours as soon as possible, I will be sure to plug them into the list.
Okay. I've been running mine off and on for the last week and a half to 2 weeks. And so I'm just trying to get into a format I'm willing to share.
All right. So the next thing on our old business agenda is discuss the September 17th coffee talk topics. And do we have any ideas? I know Margaret and I sort of talked a little bit about it when we set the agenda for tonight. If you want, I could share those, Margaret, or the things that we talked about. We could, because it's on October 24th and we will be doing the goals and objectives before that, we could talk about sharing those on the September 17th coffee talk. I think, I don't know whether Peg and Margaret discussed, or maybe just Margaret thought that maybe having Lisa from the 1870 Town Hall come to Coffee Talk to talk about her ideas for the 1870 Town Hall, and possibly even Victoria, I'm trying to kill a fly here, from the Council on Aging to be introduced to the public. Those are the 3 things that I guess we had talked about when we set this agenda. And
Yeah.
is there anything else that you can think of right now?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about traffic because there was, at our last one, the conversation came up about fixing the off-ramp off of 495 onto 290. And that one just seems to have like blown in the wind. You know, there's nothing going on. So, and again, as I sit here and very much turn into my parents and yell at people driving about 50, 60 up a very narrow road, just slow down. Would like to hear the chief's plan on talking about traffic and talking about speeding with that in town, because as the world starts to open back up, it's getting worse. With that, definitely I'd invite Dave, talk to him. Let's see, September. So we wouldn't have another one until what? December? January?
December.
So I don't know if you could talk to Dave about, and no one wants to bring it up, even though it's 8,000 degrees out, maybe we do, plans that he's going to have in place for highway on the treatments that he uses on the road. I know that was a concern last year, as the sodium intake for wells that were close to the road were testing higher than they normally have in the past when it was just a combination of sand and salt. So maybe that needs to go down there too. Margaret, I don't know, I almost called it Clean Street, and I know it's not Clean Street, it's Complete Street. If there's anything that you can talk to about that, I would definitely bring up the library, because we will have met the September deadline for all the information to be turned in. So to see where we are with that, what's going to be done, so people will have a vested interest.
Mm-hmm.
Got that, Margaret?
I do.
If not,
Well,
I've written them all down. Mhm.
All right. I mean, we need to pace ourselves too, though.
Correct.
Maybe if not everything goes on this coffee talk, it could go on the next one. Just to make sure that, we have time to discuss each one.
Agreed. But I mean, if you're just looking for topics, then we certainly have enough time to whittle them down and get the invites out. But, let's just brainstorm and throw ideas up on the wall and then see what sticks.
Okay.
We'll be talking a little bit about traffic tonight, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, you got anything to add, Scott, or?
No, the list is too long as it is, so I won't add anything at the moment.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to approval of the notice of the FY21 preliminary tax billing.
Okay, through the chair, I'm going to do my best, and I know June is sitting as an attendee here too. We're going to do our best. This originates with the assessor's office, but I'm going to try to touch on these points. First of all, the town already bills semi-annual tax bills. We bill based on actual numbers. Because of COVID this year, the state recognized that cities and towns may have difficulty setting the tax rate in a timely manner, or may suffer some valuation related delays due to COVID. And so they recognized this back in the spring of this year, at which point they issued an Informational Guideline release that kind of reiterates a provision that already exists in statute that allows a town to issue preliminary estimated semi-annual tax bills. What this would do essentially, and I put together a long memo today, but what this would actually do is, regardless of the delays that we suffer with valuations, with assessing valuations or valuation setting, it would allow us to maintain our cash flow until such time as the tax rate is set and bills are issued. So what there are small differences, but small but big differences between this and the process that we go through every year with setting the tax rate and the tax classification hearing. This would require the submission of the town's recap sheet, which are accountant, town clerk, assessors, all participate in preparing. Every year we submit the recap. We submit it based on a balanced budget. We submit it within the Prop 2.5, within Prop 2.5, the levy limit, and we include valuation information. The difference between that and this year, if the board does approve this notice to do the preliminary estimated semi-annual tax bills, is that all information would be included except for that valuation data. That's the part that would be allowed additional time to collect. So I want to be clear that, number one, this is an option for the town. If we find that we are allowed to, if we find that we are able to do the valuations and actually do the tax classification hearing and set the tax rate in a timely basis, we won't need this. So this is similar to the board's prior votes due to COVID-19 on the 1/12 budget, on the deficit spending. But if we find that we are not able to do that, this would allow us to submit the pro forma recap sheet where all the information is provided except for the valuation data. So I want to be clear, and I made it clear in the memo, that in the pro forma recap, the town does not have the right or ability to increase the tax levy. Town meeting actually appropriated an amount that is almost $900,000 less than our maximum allowable levy. That is the number we will use, the number that was appropriated by town meeting. So I don't know what else to add, and I don't know if June has anything else to add to this. What I probably didn't mention already is that the assessors voted on June 29th to give notice to the board that they wanted to proceed with the preliminary estimated semi-annual tax bills for FY21 due to COVID reasons and the uncertainty around them. So To the extent that I am able to answer any questions, and again, I'm not an assessor, but to the extent that I am able to answer any questions, I will try. And if I can't, maybe June could weigh in.
Questions?
So how much uncertainty are we talking about? Because there's uncertainty every year in valuation. That's why we have a fund to specifically pay people out where there's a change in valuation.
Right.
And
So
we put more money into that fund this year specifically because there's going to be some uncertainties.
So this is a reval year on top of everything else, which I don't know. I need confirmation from the assessors that this adds complexity to the process. I also don't have specific information on what the assessors have had to deal with relative to COVID that are affecting the valuation and delays that may come from COVID. So I can't answer all those questions. The assessors would have to take some of those, but I can certainly ask.
Pretty much what the reasoning behind this is because with the recap sheet, normally we have the values already set. So it would be based on that. Where we're doing a reval this year, and I thought there was something else that Molly said was also an issue, but where we have to do so many parcels that have to be revalued, it takes a little bit longer. They haven't been able to get into buildings. So it's slowing up a little bit as far as being able to actually do the full valuation as they're supposed to. So pretty much what this is instead of us waiting until that's completed, which will not be done by, I think, what did we figure on, Margaret? September 1st?
Yes.
It all have to be finalized before, so that we could get the tax bills out on time. Hopefully with us doing the preliminaries, what they do is they take the values as they were as of last year for the first half of the year and base it on that. And then any of the adjustments would come for the second half tax bills.
So that people will get two bills that are not the same because the second year tax bill will both make up any difference higher or lower based on tax rate and anything higher or lower based on change in valuation.
Correct.
That is correct.
And that and I'm under the impression that doing preliminary tax bills is also a significant amount of work because of limitations of the software we're using to send out tax bills. Is that
I don't
true?
know if that's an issue.
Okay.
The tax bills always due on November? I thought they were due December.
No, they usually go out, they're supposed to go out by October 1st so that they're due November 1st and then May 1st.
They're due 30 days after the date of actual issuance.
So last year, the tax bills, the last couple of years, the tax bills have gone out late, which makes the due date later.
All right.
If we pass a preliminary approval of preliminary bill, that means we will be able to get something out by October 1st?
That's the plan.
She took the words right out of my mouth.
Or anything the select board could be doing to make sure that plan is more likely than less likely? Besides actually making a vote tonight that tells you direction to go?
You could come in and help me finish closing the books and getting all the departments to get me the information I need.
We put it in our goals and objectives.
June, you know how I do my checkbook. If you want me to come in.
Never mind. I was just kidding. Just kidding.
Hey, 10 plus or minus either way. I call it a draw. So question for you, Margaret and Miss June. What information is going to be going out to the town about this? You know, like the, oh my God, look at my electric bill, you know, everyone was not happy. What are we getting out now to the town? Obviously dependent upon a vote tonight so that there can be questions and hey, maybe this is a topic for a coffee talk, you know, that we scratch all the other ones and bring you fine people up to the front.
That's a very good point, Peg. That's a potential coffee talk discussion for sure, because that's going to be directly relevant to that time period. So June might want to weigh in too, but my thought is that this can be very, as you can see, this can be very complicated to explain What we would attempt to do is boil it down into the simplest terms. I think similar to what we did with the CPA information brochure that went out in tax bills. So we could develop something that is written on basic terms that taxpayers won't have to ask, what does this all mean? So we could work on doing something that's a basic information brochure that is understandable.
I mean, I don't think it can be, it doesn't have to be all that complicated. That due to COVID and revaluation, we've had to send out an estimated taxes. This is how we've estimated it.
Yep.
You will get a bill in 5 months for whatever the difference is between what you really owe and what you've paid. Hopefully they're relatively close together. Some of you will see an increase, some of you will see a decrease. And if we did our estimates well enough, they'll be pretty close to even the number of people who see increases and decreases.
Okay. Any other questions?
Of course, then again, I deal with numbers all the time.
Tell you what, once we develop something, we'll run it by the board to see if it's understandable enough that we could actually release it.
I don't know. I'm willing to volunteer Scott to help write it. So, you know.
Except, of course, that I understand numbers, and so you want someone who doesn't understand numbers and taxes probably to be at least maybe I can help write it, but that someone who doesn't understand taxes and tax bills and valuations to actually read it's like, how much inside language did we use to make it usable?
I was going to say, you're right, because I fully understood everything Scott said. So you're right. We may need to have somebody else rewrite it.
Plus or minus 10. It
Exactly.
worked. Here you go.
Okay. So we need to take a vote on whether or not to do this preliminary tax billing. Yes?
Yes. And at a later date, you are going to need to jointly sign the application that goes to DOR. You'll jointly sign it with the Board of Assessors.
Okay. All right. So this would be a motion to approve the FY21 preliminary tax billing.
Well, keep going, Chris. You already started it.
Well, you could just say so moved.
There you go. Moved.
There you go.
So moved.
All right. And a second?
Second.
All right. Well, then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right.
Okay.
Motion passes.
I will let the Board of Assessors know, and we will be working on our end. I'll give you updates. We'll give you updates every meeting.
I hate when I do that.
All right. Then the next thing is to talk about the Town of Berlin host community agreement with C3. And we did get an update from Amy today on a couple of questions we had when we discussed it. I don't know if you want to go over it, Margaret, or if everybody's had a chance to read it, or.
Peg and Scott, have you had a chance to read this, the red line?
I have not.
Okay, so I think we could probably just give a snapshot here. The host community agreement is, Chris, weigh in if you care to. The host community agreement is coming together really well. We provided a draft, or actually we took the draft from C3, and our legal, if I'm getting the path right here, our legal marked it up. We gave it back to C3 for red lines. I think we might have half expected that C3 would push back, because that was our experience with a prior applicant, that we would have some significant pushback. However, because he had already stated at the community outreach meeting that they were willing to go with a 3%, which is what our board had previously expressed a desire for, we kind of knew that was going to show up in the draft. Additionally, this draft also reflects a charitable contribution that would be made. Now, Encore, the principal of C3, mentioned at the community outreach meeting that There wouldn't necessarily be anything written into the contract for charitable contributions, but we did manage to get that in, and that's in this draft currently. With regard to questions that Chris and I had of our legal, we asked, first of all, about assignments. We wanted assurance that if the facility owner did assign the ownership of the business to another party, we wanted to be sure that the town was adequately protected from disreputable assignees. And so we asked Amy to double check that section. I think it's paragraph 16.
Yeah.
Paragraph 16. And she did indicate that in her opinion, the town is protected from disreputable assignees because town approval would be required upon assignment, and the town's approval could only be withheld if the assignee, for example, was not able to obtain state licenses and things. So she feels that there is adequate protection in that paragraph. The next one is indemnification. We had some experiences in previous negotiations with this language. We asked Amy to review the language in paragraph 24, and she opined that the language only becomes applicable if there's insurance coverage, and the town is therefore protected by either insurance or the party to the host community agreement. So she feels that there is adequate protection there. Finally, under the force majeure paragraph, which is paragraph 28, it was understandable. This was not a paragraph that we had proposed initially, but it was understandable that C3 came back to the town and proposed the force majeure provision because of COVID-19 and the closures that have happened and things like that. So we asked Amy to review that as well. She has a couple of comments with regard to language changes in that paragraph that we'll propose for C3. But otherwise, I don't want to speak for Chris, but I feel that the progress on these negotiations has come along really well.
I agree. I think that it's less antagonistic than it has been in the past.
Yeah. With regard to the 3% payment, that is over and above any real estate and personal property tax that the facility would pay. We would be looking at the payment of the 3% community impact fee at the end of a 12-month period. So they would have a full 12-month period. Then we'd be looking at getting the payment of 3% of their gross retail sales.
So Margaret, does the board need to take any action tonight, or?
Not necessarily, because this was really an agenda item for discussion so the board could understand where we're at with negotiations. But I would think that if the board's you're going to discuss the 17th, it's possible that the HCA might be ready for execution by the 17th, or if not that, by the 31st.
Right. Does anybody see any glaring things that they really want to talk about in the agreement?
No, I was reading it as we went along. It looked good to me. I think as these become more and more common as across the state, they become less contentious because towns know more things we really aren't going to be able to ask for, and providers know things that towns are going to ask for. They're going to have to give it in because they've given it in other places. And so that could be why this is better. Or it could be we just have ourselves a really good partner, which I'd love to think that is true as well.
Yeah. And I think once each town has signed on to one of the host community agreements, that's the expectation for anyone who comes into the town. So I think we're pretty lucky right now. I mean, we wanted to sort of set a precedence with this.
Right.
So then if you agree, then we'll meet with C3 again and just give the updated information that Amy gave us to to them.
Mhm. Yep, and we might be able to polish this up. If any of the board members have any comments on this, just direct them to me,
Mhm.
and I'll be sure that we follow up on them.
Okay. So we're going to move on to new business, a review and vote the notice of town administrator anticipated appointments per the Town Administrator Act. And there is a part-time police officer and a part-time per diem COA van driver.
Yes. So this is the first time since I began that we'd be exercising this part of the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator Act, which allows the town administrator to appoint and remove individuals under the jurisdiction of the board, except for department heads of town council, provided that I have consulted appropriately with the board and given the board notice of these anticipated appointments. So I am giving the notice of the anticipated appointments to you in memo format, and this is something we might want to tweak as we move forward as to how the board would like the notice. But yeah, I'm trying to get going on this provision of the act. I want to be clear that I would not make any appointment till such time as the board acts favorably or affirmatively on the notice or allows the 14 days to lapse without taking action and assuring that all pre-employment requirements are met. So my intent here is to give you the names of the candidates, the positions that they are applying for, the anticipated appointments, the positions that they're anticipated to be appointed to, the rates per hour for each of these employees.
Okay. Are there any questions for Margaret? Peg.
So Margaret, on the part-time police officer, unfortunately we ran into a situation where, we promoted a gentleman, to that rank, and now he has decided to leave the town. And, absolutely wish him all the best and continued success. But for those part-time police roles, and maybe it's going to come up in the contracts, I don't know, but I'll throw it out there. If there is any, length of term, so let's say that we put them through special training, they get special equipment, and they leave before said term or whatever is complete. What is the information, or not information, what is the payback almost that the town would get? Because I'd love to give knowledge, I'd love to share knowledge, but at the same time too, I don't want somebody coming in and joining Berlin and being like, woohoo, I can get trained in XYZ, and then in 6 months, I'm out of here and go get a full-time job at a much higher rate of pay.
Yep. Excellent question. And it's something that I discussed with personnel last week. I have actually done agreements in my prior communities requiring that the new hires be retained. If we're going to be putting them through academy and through training that the town is investing in, we are going to ask them to sign an agreement that they will stay for X amount of time, or if they don't, to reimburse the town on a prorated basis or the full cost of the training that the town has paid for. Okay. So there is, in my conversation with the personnel committee the other night, there is the potential that this could be included in the collective bargaining agreement. I mean, I guess it's possible. I've always done it as a separate employer-employee agreement outside of the collective bargaining agreement, but it probably could be approached either way.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously I just don't want to think that, we are specifically honing in on part-time police because that's the open position. At some point, we're going to have part-time fire, we're going to have part-time EMS. So I would like that to carry over that, if you don't stay for X amount, then you have to, pay back. It's like a retention bonus at work. yeah, we'll give you X amount of thousands of dollars, but you got to pay. And if you don't stay, well, then you got to pay it back. So,
Agreed. The town is investing money in the new
Correct.
employee, in the new hires, and they should be expected to stay a certain
Okay.
period of time.
Yep. Okay. Good answer. Any other questions? All right.
Mary, do you have something? Oh, you don't? Okay.
I was just
I don't know.
Galvin, Chief Galvin is in the audience, and I wanted to check to see if he wanted to be heard on the.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right. So we need to take a vote to support Margaret's appointments.
so moved.
Second.
There you go. All right. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. So Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Thank you all. Do you like this format okay? Does that suffice?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And we're down to review of the street sign request form and proposed traffic safety advisory committee, mission and charge.
Yes, traffic discussion. First of all, the street sign request. I mean, the board has had, there's been some discussion at the board's recent meetings about the need for street signs like stop signs, and it could be any kind of signs, could be yield, could be stop, could be, slow, go slow, children playing. But in order to better manage, or in order to try to manage the requests that are coming in and to go through a proper vetting process, I am proposing that the board adopt this street sign request. Today, it's only being presented as an introduction to the board for your review. No need to move on it tonight. I have run it by highway, police, and fire. They all support going through this vetting process for signs. This will allow the town to prioritize the sign requests. It also allows the town, or it prompts the town to acknowledge that certain amounts of money are budgeted for signs, and that gives us the ability to prioritize the sign requests as well. So I wanted to introduce this as a thought to try to manage the sign requests.
Okay. Peg or Scott, any questions, comments?
This form could be used to add or ask to remove signs. As someone who sometimes thinks there's too many signs in too many places.
Wow. This is meant to be a request for signs, Scott. So, I mean,
Government only ever gets bigger. There's no way to make government smaller. I want to make sure forms to make government bigger also can make government smaller.
Maybe we could do a separate request to remove street signs.
I think this form could be used the same, because the request to sign type and description, I can easily say the stop sign at the corner of X and Y seems, there's 6 of them there. I bet we could get away with 2 of them. And put it through the process.
Okay, we can make that clear somewhere here too.
I might drive around to find a sign that I think should go away just to see what happens when I do that.
Okay.
Well, it would undergo all these reviews, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that the form looked fine to me, and I thought that the idea of a traffic safety advisory committee is a good idea. With those particular members. I don't know about Scott and Peg, but
yeah, no, I thought it was decent.
Yeah.
So the idea behind this, without going on too long, the idea behind this is that the town has been so good about adopting various plans, most of which I should say, address the roads, traffic, pedestrian safety. There's a whole assortment of things. This is a way that we can more comprehensively look at these plans and prioritize our needs as far as pedestrian and traffic safety. Yep. So I do appreciate the board's consideration of this. This is something else that I've run by our public safety officials and highway, and they are supportive of taking this more holistic approach at looking at traffic and pedestrian safety issues.
Does Tom have anything he wants to add?
He might.
He's probably at the refrigerator right now, so.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm promoting him to
No, there he
panelist, so
is.
we shall see.
There I am. I'm here. No, it's just we've been talking about this. There's been a lot of requests and things that have been discussed at meetings, and I think we need to have a proper forum to really look at how we evaluate all the traffic concerns and the problems that we're going to face in the future. We've had a lot of discussions about Carterville, and we've talked about Riverbridge, but it's different groups always talking about things. So a centralized way to do it is going to kind of really better serve the community and really give us a plan for the future, because we've thrown grant funding around and all these different ideas, but we don't have a centralized way to come up with the projects we want to move forward on. So to have this, and I've seen this in other communities, talking to other police chiefs, they're all members of them, and that's how they work through kind of the traffic issues that they're facing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And to Chief's point, we also need to start really thinking about how we fund pre-construction costs, engineering and design work in particular for major road projects, which we have not planned for. So some of this should lead to that as well, advocacy for engineering and design work for major projects.
Okay. So would you like a vote tonight if we're all comfortable?
If the board is comfortable doing that, sure.
Peg, are you okay?
Yeah, because I'm actually one who started and reached out to Margaret and Tom because I had received a couple feedback from neighbors that are near me to put up stop signs. Not sure if they'll be paid attention to, but to put them up. So I was kind of in on this from the beginning.
Oh, okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the street sign request form and the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee mission and charge?
So moved.
Second.
All right. We'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right. There you go. Board questions and comments. And my question to the board was, what do you want to do about August 17th? Margaret will be away on vacation. Do we want to
She
cancel?
thinks. Sorry. She thinks she will. We'll see what happens with this trip.
Uh-huh. What pandemic are we going to get this time?
Yeah, really. Thanks, Margaret. You brought COVID back. What are you doing this time?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So we have a meeting, I believe, on August 3rd and on, well, that's tonight. Hello.
Yes.
And
That meeting will happen. I think that meeting should happen. The August 3rd one.
yeah, seeing as how it's almost over. And then on the 31st. And then normally right between the two with a week off, we would have the 17th. I didn't know whether we should leave it scheduled and cancel it if it's not necessary, or if you both wanted to cancel and you were going on a long trip somewhere.
No,
I'm not planning on anywhere.
I mean, we have the 24th is our goals and objectives meeting, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So I say take the next 2 weeks off. And if something critical happens, Mary
You
knows
take a
how
vote
to
on
find
the
us. Yeah, Mary knows how to find us.
Okay. That sounds like a plan to me. All right. So yeah, I didn't have that on the.
I'm going to get used to having breaks between meetings.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go away. And then they're going to go away and I won't have another break until like next July.
Yeah, well, the only problem is then the meetings get longer when you're
Yes,
a week away or so, but.
that's tonight,
so-
yes.
So Mary, we should probably put August 24th on this calendar too? No?
That's a list of dates that are anticipated at the beginning of the year, but we don't go and change that as the year rolls on. You just, anything on My
Okay.
Town Government is the official posting. So that sheet is already on our website and on My Town Government as the anticipated list of selectmen meeting dates.
Right.
So
Okay.
you can always go and add stuff off cycle.
Okay. All righty, then I'll just put it in my calendar. How's that? All right.
All right, so
Is
the
there any
board,
other, is there so we will take that 17th off. And, keep us posted as far as the length of time that Eloise would like to keep the warrant open to. We could probably do it
Yeah.
on the 24th or something maybe, or,
yeah, we need more info from Eloise. I will touch base with her.
all right.
That.
That was my only question.
Oh, and she's frozen right at the end.
What's that?
Said you were
What's
frozen
that?
you were frozen right at the end.
Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
You're back.
Comments or questions?
Well, I had 4, but Margaret already stole 2 of them.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's
Well,
that's a
I
good.
know that's the way it should do it. Well, no, because I wanted to ask you about the street sign. So check, boom,
Okay.
done. The second one, I had just wanted to bring Scott and Chris up to date on the email that I had sent to COA in 1870 about like the drive-through lunches. But because I stole the idea from the paper, but you've already kind of taken care of that.
We're actually, I should add, Peg, though, that Victoria is actually looking into the possibility of working with Wheat out of Clinton to do some sort of bag lunch pilot program for this particular event to see
Okay.
how it goes. So we may be able to do something, not a cookout, but something similar.
Yeah, because the town of Bellingham does it. It's extremely successful. And I forget which town was it, West Boylston, that it was doing it. They had 140 people show up just for like a hot dog drive-through where people could get it and either, go somewhere, take it home, go somewhere and sit. So thought, you know what, why can't we try it or at least talk about it for the town?
Yeah.
Is this something, I don't remember seeing an email about this.
I just sent it to Chris and, not Chris, I sent it to Margaret and Lisa and Victoria and just said, hey, I was reading the paper and I stole this idea. What do you think?
Okay.
It was about cooking burgers or dogs for
Yeah, it was a
drive-through.
drive-through lunch. The other 2, Chris, you might be able to help me with one of them. Way back in your memory bank, we had talked to EDC about some type of beautification down at the Rotaries. Did that just like fall off into the wind and nothing ever happened to it again? I was reading an article in one of the local fish papers and saw that and went, we had talked about that. Whatever happened to it?
I don't know if Cheryl Sharon is a committee unto herself. She was the one who was doing the cleanup of some of the town garden.
Right. Yeah,
or if she got
the first Rotary. Because I know that they were looking at potentially, this land or this Rotary, something, by the Highland Commons or something like that to help promote the business, but to also help them pick it up. I just asked if you had remembered. And then the third one, I can take a picture of it and send it because you're not going to be able to see like my little item here.
Oh, I could see it pretty good.
There was an article in the paper about funds available for families during crisis, and it talked about all Massachusetts families with school-age children who are eligible for free or reduced price school meals or who attend a school where students receive free breakfast and lunch receive additional funds from the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer, and it gave like a number to call and a website. So I figured, it couldn't hurt, especially seeing the report from the food pantry, where there's more of an uptick in folks that are using it. It makes me sad, but it also makes me very happy that we're able to take care of our own. So I will take a photo of this and I'll send it round and then we can decide what to do with it.
Terrific. I think this is another opportunity for us to engage Wheat out of Clinton too, to see what they can help us with.
Okay. All right. I'll send that round.
All
All right.
right.
I'm done. Those are my 4.
Thank you.
Good.
Scott?
No, nothing for
You
me.
good?
I did it during a town administrator report.
Okay. All right, well, seeing no need for an executive session this evening, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Keith, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
All right,